Criminals don't care where they commit crimes or where they go afterwards. It's in everyone's best interest to develop and maintain a good working relationship.
The way that relationships get improved is through the 3 C's: communication, coordination, and cooperation.
When I first came here, that was the first thing I did is I went and met with the Chief of Police in Payson. I went and met with the sheriff and his staff and said, how can I improve our relationship here? How can I make our agencies work together?
Tribal members have a unique ethnicity in this country as well as culture. No different than any other culture in the United States.
You know, we bring them in front of the juries, and maybe sometimes they don't understand some of the cultural things that come into play even when you're just doing a basic interview of somebody. They may say something that, you know, I might happen to know what it means because I've been doing this for, you know, a number of years, but the layperson and the jury, they might not understand what that comment means.
The only way that you're going to learn or be in the know is if you put yourself out there to say, hey, you know, this is what's happening on the reservation. What do you see happening in yours? I mean, and we don't do that enough as law enforcement.
It's a different world in any country as far as law enforcement is concerned, primarily because of the federal, state, and tribal jurisdiction.
I think the collaboration process, it's always going to be evolving in communication. One of the things that definitely could benefit or continue to benefit are going to be, you know, just regional meetings with officials from the different agencies, training, and working, you know, and just keep building up that contact base. Once you build up the contact base through training and meetings, then, you know, people get it in their mind, well, hey, oh, I remember the detective with this agency. Let me call them and see, you know, if they might know something about this particular case.
I know when I worked for Wallapai, we used to have the different sheriffs from the different counties come in and talk to, you know, Chief Bradley up there, you know, not only to sign MOAs or MOUs with their agencies, but to periodically just sit down with them and say, hey, what are you guys dealing with? You know, hey, because we have an extended response time to this location, which is in our county, thank you for, you know, handling that, but what can we do for you?
Creating an environment of communication and trust with the community that we serve. That is absolutely one of the challenges that all police departments face nationwide. And we feel on the Salt River Police Department, by establishing open communication, creating opportunities for positive interaction with our community, and ensuring that we have a host of community-based policing programs and engaging the community and being part of the community goes a long way for building partnerships and relationships with the community that we serve.
Once you get to know people at a human level and develop some personal relationships, then when that person calls you needing something down the road, it's not just a faceless voice on the other end of the line.
Being able to train with your Indian country law enforcement partners, you know, how are they going to respond if we call them to back us up? Or if we're a ways away from this call and they're a lot closer, you know, how are they going to handle it when they get there?
Working the community fairs, doing impaired driver details, doing seatbelt details, just getting the people out there and working together is going to enhance the trust between the two agencies.
A lot of the tribal members that are victims in cases, they tend to go back to the reservation. So, and these cases are going to trial a year later, 2 years later. So now the attorneys are trying to find them. Well, they can't find them because they're on the reservation. So I use all my networking tools and I reach out to all of my native investigators that I worked with, all of my chiefs of police that I worked with, and I ask them, hey, can you help me? And can one of your people go out and see if she lives at this address? I don't think we do that enough in Indian country or policing in general. I really don't, because you can have two agencies that are side by side each other and officers not know each other. And I don't understand that.
The relationship that we have currently with the United States Attorney's Office is the best that I've ever seen it. And we have a lot of collaboration with them. I think that's one of the other key factors in prosecuting cases in Indian country is to get, you know, your attorney on board in the beginning, communicating with them. This is what I have in my case. You know, what else do we need for this case? Or are we good to go on this case now? And I think a lot of times in law enforcement, we just think to ourselves, well, we got this, we'll figure it out, then we'll give it to them and they have to prosecute it. But it doesn't always work that way.
I have really seen a drastic difference in the relationships really between tribal law enforcement, federal and state law enforcement, and our office, quite frankly. I think that the communications have been enhanced for sure.
I think the more we build those relationships between individuals, the better. The more we communicate about what's going on, the more that we are courteous when we're executing warrants or when we're doing hot pursuits or those sorts of things, that comes back to us.
Taking the time for those tribal, the Indian country law enforcement officers to explain to non-Indian country law enforcement officers, hey, here's how we do it. Or those law enforcement executives sit down and just discuss, hey, I'm just curious, what kind of laws do you guys have in place for this or for this?
It's hard to believe myths if you get up close to tribal police officers, and vice versa. If we all interact more closely, I think we realize that we have much more in common than there are differences. And when we do that, and that can be in the form of just informal contacts, it can be shared training, it can be, and there are a lot of opportunities. A joint police academy between a tribal agency and a municipal or a county or a state police agency. These are all opportunities to just get closer together. And when you do that, I think you realize that we are on the same team. We're all brothers and sisters in law enforcement, and that our differences are pretty small.
Network with another tribal agency and ask them, do you have a policy for orders of protection? Do you have a victim's rights policy? Can you send it my way so we can look at it?
Go to the gym and work out with them and just talk to them like cops do, you know, oh yeah, we dealt with this or we dealt with that. Just to build those lines of communication, I think is the key to improving those relationships.
In outlying areas where you've got small agencies, when I'd go down there and meet for meetings, those agencies all work together really well. And the reason they cooperated so well was because if you had a big case with a lot of search warrants or arrests that had to go down, nobody had enough people to do it all by themselves, and so you had to rely on others.
There is such a confusing patchwork of jurisdiction and so many different individuals involved for various offenses involving various individuals that communication is just key. I think regular meetings, regular communications about what the various goals are of the various jurisdictions who are working in that area and the specific needs of the community. Communicating about those things, I think, will just lead to improved relationships and really an improvement in addressing the public safety needs of those individual communities.
That's the way our country looks at state, local, and federal law enforcement. They leave out the tribal side of all of this, which means they don't look at and don't understand the inherent government-to-government status or relationship that Indian country has with this country today.
Continued cooperation with the local governments and the law enforcement is going to help your relationships continue to be strong and to even grow stronger.
There's a big need for understanding that, hey, tribal jurisdictions like this, and I think we're making that known, at least in Arizona we do.
There are a number of national and local law enforcement related resources available to you to enhance your investigative responses to, in, or around Indian country.
Some of the resources that help agencies to interact better are the Arizona Association of Chiefs of Police. And of course, tribal police chiefs are welcome and invited and encouraged to become a part of that organization, which includes lobbyists and legal bulletins and updates. So there's some benefits to that. The Indian Country Intelligence Network, which is under the umbrella of the Intertribal Council of Arizona, is another great resource.
Over 20 years ago, we formed this organization called the Indian Country Intelligence Network. And our vision at the time was to create an environment where we could have a collaborative, united partnership, whether it was tribal, local, municipal, county, state, and federal police, and criminal justice partners, where we could work collaboratively together to serve and protect our community and our neighboring communities.
The Indian Country Intelligence Network has a website which is under the Intertribal Council of Arizona. Intertribal Council of Arizona, again, provides staff and administrative support to the Indian Country Intelligence Network. It was actually done through tribal leader resolution back in 1996, where those tribal leaders from across the state said that Intertribal Council of Arizona would provide that support.
Sharing information, communicating, providing trainings, advising of trainings that are going on. It's just really a good resource for those who work in Indian Country.
It gives that group the opportunity to share, hey, you know, this county is dealing with this, which is right outside your tribal boundaries. How can you help us?
Through some of the efforts of ISON and others, some entities have now within Arizona been given access to some of the databases like NCIC and some of those things that in the past tribal law enforcement didn't have access to, which is really key when you want to find out whether one of your tribal members might have outstanding charges out of another district or whether there's protective orders or those sorts of things.
I have many of the tribal police chiefs and our external partners that email me training all the time and say, hey, can you put this out? You know, it's free training. All you have to do is get your people here.
I use ISON a lot to try to get the word out to the tribes because you can't tell too many people too much when there's money to be had or there's training to be had.
The Intertribal Council of Arizona has a website that has links to Arizona member tribes, and some of those tribes will have their statutes actually posted on the website. Any tribal police agency that is working towards VAWA compliance to be able to prosecute non-natives for domestic violence is required to make their statutes available to the public.
With respect to finding out the laws of various tribes, the one thing I would say is that more and more tribes are moving to the computer age and putting all their resources online. And that's especially true, I think, now with VAWA and TLOA, because what happened was one of the requirements that Congress imposed was that when they create their new laws and their new criminal procedures is that they have to publish them. Well, publishing doesn't necessarily mean paper. It can mean any way that's the best way to communicate with your people as to what these new laws and procedures are.
In my experiences, I've actually called tribal agencies and asked them, you know, about their laws. Do you have a law for this? Do you have a law? You know, and they'll send them to me. But resources, you can go for missing exploited children, you can go to NCMEC, you can go to the BIA for resources. For victims of crime, you can go to, you know, websites, that tribal websites. I mean, they're all over the place. You just gotta search.
Resources for tribal, state, BIA, and federal officers that is actually provided by the BIA typically falls underneath training and technical assistance. We partner with the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. One of their units is a state and local training unit, which actually exports training out tuition-free for state, local, tribal officers, and also our BIA officers. So we collaborate especially with key training programs such as human trafficking, drug endangered children, officer safety and survival, type of training that are exported out into Arizona.
The FBI is a good resource for anyone that has any questions about how to handle a particular situation in Indian Country. The other good resource is potentially the United States Attorney's Office in Arizona, because they prosecute all the cases in this district, and there's just a level of expertise between these two agencies, and with specific to Indian Country, that I think could be very useful for anyone, you know, within another agency.
If it is a legal question, when it comes up in Indian Country, we can reach out to the U.S. Attorney's Office and say, what is your guidance on this?
It's recognizing each other's authority, abilities, knowledge, skills, and the simple fact of the matter is we're not just tribal cops. We have the same inherent authority as everyone else in the state of Arizona, and we share our resources that way.
Normally they'll get an elder that will come in and that will teach all the recruits about the history, and it's somebody from the community so they can explain the ways.
If a trooper or an officer works in a particular area and he's or she's looking to learn more about the agency, I think the first step is to go knock on that agency's door. To walk in there and say, you know what, I was just assigned here. I know absolutely nothing about your community or your agency. From there, I would reach out to the chapter houses, That's going to help you know more about culture, the community, the politics of the area, and then the local courts. Go in and meet with the local judge that they have. Go meet with the clerks. I guarantee you, if you express an interest in them, they're going to educate you. From there, there's other resources. You can reach out to you guys here at Post. You guys can steer them in the right direction.
Federal, state, local, and tribal agencies are working together to promote public safety in Indian country and throughout Arizona.
Currently, what DPS is doing is we're really pushing to get more agreements between the tribes. That will enhance our ability to assist these other tribal agencies. As you guys know, one of the big things for DPS is an assist agency. We want to be there to be able to be ready to respond to assist in whatever capacity is asked of us.
The U.S. Attorney's Office in the District of Arizona is the only district in the nation that has more than one tribal liaison. Most Indian country districts have one tribal liaison. A few years back, the U.S. Attorney decided that because we have 22 tribes here in Arizona, that it just wasn't really feasible to do a good job by having one tribal liaison who was trying to interact with 22 separate tribes.
I think that the U.S. Attorney's Office in Arizona is absolutely dedicated to improving public safety in Indian communities. We have 3 different offices in the District of Arizona that address specifically Indian country needs. We actually have 4 offices, but our Flagstaff office, our Phoenix office, and our Tucson office all have dedicated prosecutors who work in Indian country. Each of those offices also has a tribal liaison specifically designated to deal with tribal relations.
One of the big things we have is a website. Okay, we get on a website, we pretty much put everything that happens here on the Wallapai Nation and kind of broaden everybody's range. And then the other thing we have here is also the radio station.
This is Sergeant Brian Frey with the Wallapai Nation Police Department. Everybody wants to get their kicks on 66, but we know we have big trucks traveling this.
We have officers that go into the radio station and they
stay safe, let the drivers see.
Everything from safety activities to what we're doing, and that's open wide. It's not on a radio station. It's on a website, so you can turn on your website and it's shot across the country, and everybody hears what we're talking about here.
The U.S. Attorney in our district hosts an annual tribal listening conference with the 22 tribes from around Arizona. And the purpose of that is for him to sit down and be able to hear from those tribal leaders as to what their issues are, what their concerns are, what things are important to them, if there's things where they think we could be doing a better job, those sorts of things.
Our Explorer Post attracts young men and women from ages 14 to 21 to learn more about policing, service to their community. In the time period that the last 20 years since the formation of our post, we've had over 20 young men and women complete the program, and now they're gainfully employed in very worthwhile positions within the community.
The Explorer program helped me to be who I am today because they taught me basically about respect for law enforcement. They built me up to be able to speak because I was very shy at the time. So it's helped me a lot and encouraged me. And when I applied for this position, now I work for a criminal investigations division as a technician. So I'm working with the detectives, and it's really nice because a lot of the people, like the detectives there and like even in, all over the police department were my advisors. And so now, like, still seeing them today is it's an honor to be working by them.
We have community impact initiatives that are going. Some of these involve, the drug trade. We obviously try to make an impact in that area. We have community forums where we want to get feedback from the community on the job that we're doing, the services that we're providing to them, the continued training and collaboration with the various agencies. I just think those things are just constantly evolving, and they're a constant in order to take kind of a proactive approach to enforcing the laws in Indian country.
We sit on a couple of committees, part of Homeland Security, their Regional Advisory Board, I sit on a Gila County Child Fatality Review Board. We are letting people know we're here, we're willing to help, whether it's with education, resources, manpower, any way that we can possibly help.
I have several elderly people that live out in the middle of nowhere, and I'll go out and check on them, make sure that they're okay and stuff like that. And if they have any needs or anything like that, I'll try to get back to the chapter house and talk to them and see if they can work things out. And same thing, we get a lot of transients that come through, and I'll check on them from time to time.
The BIA is advancing law enforcement throughout any country through our collaboration, our partnerships, and through our training initiatives, focusing on contemporary issues that any country faces today: human trafficking, community policing, and also officer wellness, and doing better at strengthening the services that we provide to our law enforcement officers.
Because we all struggle as agencies to make sure that our officers have not only the quality of training, but the quantity that they need to maintain their certification. And when we make that opportunity available to tribal agencies that are nearby, then my experience has been that they always reciprocate, and when they have something good going on there, then they return the favor.
90% of our lawyers deal exclusively with Indian country crimes. We provide trainings. The tribal liaisons provide trainings. The AUSAs, the assistant U.S. attorneys that work in Indian country, provide trainings for their law enforcement agencies, federal, state, task force, tribal. Just a lot of outreach, a lot of communication. We work really hard to talk with our tribal communities about what we can do better to serve their needs, and vice versa.
Whether it's participating in SLEIC training, I was just thinking the other day that we'd done 4 of them this year, 3 in Arizona, well, 2 in Arizona, 1 in New Mexico that was a joint Arizona-New Mexico training, and 1 at the National Advocacy Center in South Carolina. So that's 4 different opportunities for tribal officers to get certified to enforce federal law. But we go out and we do a lot of trainings with officers just about search and seizure, about jurisdiction, about the federal court process and how that works.
From the liaisons between the school, the community, the police department, and all the kids. And basically what I do is I interact with the community, such as the police camp that I have, and I basically bring the community, the police department, and the school all together to interact and to function as one entity. Right. And like to teach the kids respect, discipline, self-worth, integrity, as well as to give them a sense of purpose and that the police aren't bad.
We formed the Western Area Law Enforcement Association, which is made up of all of us up and down the river from the northern end of the state down to Yuma. We all get together once a month. And we all get together for the simple fact of the matter is exchange of information between ourselves and to help us all work better together.
Every year we also participate in hosting or helping to host the Four Corners Conference. It's an Indian country conference made up of the 4 regions, the 4 districts, Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, and Colorado. And it really is all geared around Indian country issues from those 4 districts. And obviously, while each district is separate, the issues are very much the same.
We just want to continue to strengthen our relationships, have our expertise utilized on different collisions, shooting investigations, miscellaneous criminal investigations, and even internal investigations. And being open and transparent with these tribes throughout these investigations are going to build long-term, lifetime relationships with these communities, and that's our goal at DPS.
It's an ongoing process. It's not something you can say, you know, I checked off these boxes and now I'm done. It's quite honestly, you know, you meet one goal and there's a new one set for you. So I think it goes back to what we all need to do, and that's communication, and that's an everyday job. You know, we have to do it every single day. You need to reach out, you need to talk to people, and you need to get out and meet with them.
This concludes Unit 10 of this training. Upon completing the Unit 10 assessment module, we will revisit the learning modules and bring this program to a close. You will now be automatically redirected to the Unit 10 assessment module.